Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome along to your weekly farming programme. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor with a packed show, and once again a very busy Farmview for you this week. On this week's programme, as government unveiled its climate action plan earlier this week, we talked to Pat Smith about green energy for a new farming generation. I'll also have an update on this year's grain crops with tillage specialist Andy Doyle, and we'll hear from Dungarvan Show Chairman Pat Cunningham about plans for next month's Dungarvan Agricultural Show. And plus, as always, we'll have our farming calendar.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.
Well, on Monday last, the government unveiled its climate action plan. Indeed, very much to the core of all this and very much in the firing line is the agri and farming sector. So earlier I got a chance to talk to Pat Smith of Local Power, whose tagline is green energy for a new farming generation to strengthen and safeguard your business for the future. And I put it to Pat that his tagline really says it all.
Kieran, thanks very much. Very interesting announcements by the Minister. Hopefully, unlike past announcements, they'll be matched with action. I see very significant developments in renewable energy space in the years to come. I see very real opportunities for farmers to participate in renewables, not alone to generate their own electricity, for example, but also to generate electricity and to generate gas for the community generally.
Pat, people would know Pat Smith as General Secretary, former General Secretary of the IFA, left a few years ago, but you've been looking at this whole area within those few years. This is an area that you spoke to a year or two ago. You saw this whole potential area of what was coming down the track.
Yeah, Kieran, no matter how you look at it, as a country, we've been laggards in this space, and farmers have invested previously in this and have been let down by the government. For example, the whole Miscanthus debacle. I think this time Minister Bruton will be a little bit more focused, and he'll need to match his focus with incentives and resources to make it happen.
Now, of course, wind farms have been out there and lots of problems, lots of objections, and indeed lots of planning problems out there. The solar area we've featured the last few weeks on our programme. This whole solar area you feel is one of the key areas farmers in particular and the agri-food industry should be looking at more.
Yes, certainly, and I wouldn't totally dismiss big wind. I think that, and I would be encouraging farmers in whatever new developments take place, that they take skin in the game and get a better cut out of maybe the next generation of wind than they got out of the last generation. But certainly solar PV, I believe, is going to dominate the renewable space. The technology is well proven. There's no moving parts. The output is very predictable, and the economics of it, with solar dropping by nearly 90% in the last 10 years, and electricity price going up, the economics is starting to stack up. And I'm very pleased to see that Minister Creed has just introduced a grant for farmers. Not ambitious enough, but it's a start, and they need to maybe make it a little bit more, incentivise it a bit more attractive.
The actual scale required to make it work, or what type of scale, down to a household to an average farm as such, and indeed to industry itself, do you feel the attraction isn't across the board to make it attractive for standard family farm?
It's absolutely, you can size solar, it's very modular. You can size it to match the base load in the home or the base load in the farm. In dairy farming, for example, you have a challenge in the middle of the day where you have a big demand in the morning for electricity and a big demand in the evening, and that lull in the middle of the day will either be, the energy will have to be diverted to either heat water or to go into battery storage, then to be used at milking time in the evening. But in relation to scale, I have one project gone to planning. It's 1.7 megawatts. All of that energy, that's 12,000 square metres of solar PV on a roof. All of that energy will be used on site. So from 1 kilowatt to infinitum is the potential for solar.
We mentioned there about dairy, obviously dairy, beef, sheep farmers, but the intensive pig and poultry must be huge potential there.
Pigs and poultry particularly are big energy users, and they have a base load where there's energy being consumed 24 hours, and it's very easy to size the system. And solar, peak out generation of solar is in the April, May, June, July, August period. So you size the peak demand, the peak generation of solar with the base load of the business. And what I'm proposing to farmers and agribusiness is to take a staged approach to your solar investment. You don't have to invest all day one. You can have a stage one, you learn, and then by basically experience and knowing exactly what's happening on your farm, you can go into stage two and expand it to basically optimise your usage.
Carbon meters are buzzwords out there, but these are areas that farmers definitely have to really focus their mind on over the next few years.
Yeah, and I think that the farm organisations need to be encouraging the government to incentivise and encourage farmers rather than penalise farmers with carbon taxes and such like. And one thing I heard recently from some of the Green politicians, we'll take carbon tax off you and we'll give you back a cheque in the post. I've never seen such or heard such lunacy in my life. Who's going to pay that but the business people and the farmers of this country?
As regards the methane, just before we come here, you said there's huge potential here for farmers in general, or to come together as groups and to try and set up companies that can really harness this potential?
Yeah, I see, and again, it comes down to what government policy is initiated and when. But for example, anaerobic digestion, the Gas Networks Ireland is coming out there saying that they want 20% renewable gas by 2030. That's not going to happen without very significant government support. But if the support is there, it won't happen without farmers. And I believe the way for farmers to basically take advantage of this is coming together maybe in smaller cooperatives where they supply the feedstock and they make the land available for the digested at the end of the process, and to work with developers like myself and good technology people and who bring the technology and the finance, and that if it's well managed, that there's a dividend there for the farmers on top of what they get from their business.
The 2020, obviously, we're going to miss a lot of the targets there. The report that's out, or indeed the whole climate action plan for 2030, do you feel we'll be able to achieve a lot of what's out there?
Well, look, we are where we are. There's a lot of sceptics in the whole area of climate change, but I'm on the side of David Attenborough, who says the very existence of future generations is at stake here. So we all have a responsibility, and it's very easy to talk about action on climate change, but the cost, and this who pays, and I think that's going to be the big challenge. We have to reduce our carbon emissions by 1 million tonnes a year for the next 40 years. That's going to cost society €1 billion a year to make that happen. That's made. So I believe myself that the government need to front
load that. Carrot more than stick?
Well, there'll have to be stick at some point. Big fan of the carrot first.
Yeah, right.
And if the carrot doesn't work, well then the stick will come behind.
Obviously, from a funding point of view, the government and the EU, do you see the EU backing the government as regards support for this? Because the Irish agri and food industry, we know about sustainability and origin green and all that, but it's paramount for an industry that's crucial for the Irish economy.
Yeah, Europe will back you, but the policies are there. There's 27 countries. Some of the countries have met their targets and well exceeded their targets. So it's up to Irish society. We've signed up to certain targets, and I do believe that some of them could be renegotiated with time. But however, at the minute, we've signed up to achieve certain targets. And it's Irish society and the Irish taxpayer and Irish society and the people that live in it that's going to have to meet that bill.
So what would you say to people out listening to us, and they've heard about the Climate Action Plan 2030 and what's coming down the track, and kind of saying, look, that's down the track as such. What would you say to people, what should they do now? What action should farming families and people in general be taking now?
Well, I think that farm families in particular, they're as close to the environment as anybody, and they understand if they don't treat the environment well, it bites them very hard. So they will be very interested in this. The economics have to stack up, and I think that with proper incentives from the government, the economics, we should be able to get solar PV installations on farms with a 5-year payback. Right. I also think that the banks, and I met the chief executive of the SBCI recently, and I think they need to come forward with very low interest finance to assist and to help basically homes and businesses transition into a carbon-free world.
As regards local power, the company you've set up, Smart Energy Services, what type of uptake are you getting so far, and what type of response?
Look at it, I'm at this now for 2.5 years. I saw in my time in IFA, I saw the opportunity, and I'm very excited about what's happening. This year I'll build out over 1 megawatt of solar on rooftops right across the country.
Industry and
industry, farms and homes.
Yeah.
And I see solar PV and battery storage systems revolutionising the energy business in Ireland going forward, and I see a lot of your listeners looking at this and basically investing in it going forward.
Well, Pat, listen, great to talk to you. Local power, Smart Energy Service. Pat, to you and all involved, as I said, you spoke to me 2 years ago on this topic. You're up and running. The best of luck to you, and I'm sure the farming families listen to us this week will be embracing what we've been discussing, because it's a must-do, not alone for them, but indeed for Ireland going forward.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com.
And you're welcome back to part 2 of Farmview. Now, before we talk to Tillage Specialist Andy Doyle and Dungarvan Show Chairman Pat Cunningham in part 2, let's have a look at some items from our farming calendar. First of all, turning to Dungarvan Mart, well, it's General Cattle Calf Sale at Monday's Mart, commencing as always at 11 o'clock on Monday morning. And to our farmer markets, this Saturday we've Waterford Farmers Market, John Roberts Square, as well as the Butlerstown Market, and also of course on Saturday mornings we've the Strawberry Market in the Cove Bar. Sunday, this is Moore Farmers Market, Castle Avenue, Lismore, every Sunday from 10 until 4, while in Ardmore on Sundays we've the Ardmore Farmers Market every Sunday just off the beach car park, running from 11 until 3. On Thursdays, Dungarvan Farmers Market in Grattan Square every Thursday morning, while on Fridays we've Dungarvan Country Markets, Causeway Tennis Club in Abbeyside, and also on Friday mornings we've Waterford Country Markets in St Olave's Hall in the city. Now, for tillage farmers, don't forget a very important event takes place in Oak Park in Carlow on Wednesday next, entitled Crop crops and spreaders, and we'll preview the event later in our programme with Andy Doyle. For dairy farmers, a date for your dairy. The Teagasc Moore Park 2019 Dairy Open Day will take place in Teagasc Moore Park, Fermoy on Wednesday week, the 3rd of July. We'll have more details on next week's programme. Now to our show jumping front. The unregistered show jumping leagues continue every Thursday at Gemma Fields in Kappa at 10 in the morning and 5 in the evening. And don't forget, the finals will take place on Thursday, the 4th of July. Now, note in from Shankill House Equestrian Centre in Kilmac, well, they will be officially opening their new all-weather show jumping arena, state-of-the-art all-weather show jumping arena on Friday week, the 5th of July at 5 p.m. with champion rider Katie Power of Dungarvan, as well as international show jumper Paddy O'Donnell of Fenner. Indeed, we'll have more details on next week's programme. And finally, we'll hear more about it in part 2. Dungarvan Agricultural Show takes place in Ballygagan. A date for your dairy is Thursday the 25th of July. We'll talk to show chairman Pat Cunningham later in our programme.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, with this year's harvest just around the corner, earlier this week I got a chance to talk to Andy Doyle. He was at the Cold Crop Open Day up in Dunleer. First of all, Andy, this year's crop so far, how are they looking?
Looking pretty promising, all things told. At least that's what I think I see, and that's certainly what I hope I see. I think a lot of the residual fertility and input that was put into last year's fields that didn't come out is quite visible in this year's crops, and hopefully it turns into potential. But I think it is turning into potential, and hopefully everything keeps going from here to the end and turn it into tonnes per acre.
Andy, this time last year we had that drought. People were worried and concerned about what effect it would have on the harvest, but my God, we had a great harvest.
We had a good harvest, or at least quite a proportion of people had a good harvest, but some people had a poor harvest, mainly because of yield. Price was the main compensating factor last year, and I think in any year when you get good weather for harvest or good weather, any farming operations, it adds to the maybe not the economic success, but it adds to the good feeling of the year.
Andy, recently Tillage Industry Ireland was set up. You might tell our listeners a little bit about it. I spoke to Mike Dempsey a few weeks ago on this, but Tillage Industry Ireland, how important, first of all, is it for the industry and who's involved?
Well, I believe it's important. I think the tillage industry in particular was put on, if I can use the phrase, the high and tit, so as to speak, in that it wasn't kind of being looked after by anybody. You have the cooperatives looking after dairy, you have factories and vested interests looking after beef, and the tillage sector was being looked after by all of the individual vested interests, but there was no umbrella. So I and a number of other people felt that the concept of having an umbrella, having people kind of pulling in the same direction for the long-term good and support of the industry was important, and that's basically what it is.
And it's covering all aspects of the industry.
Yes, we're unique in that regard, in that we're made up of growers, the people in the chemical industry, people in the seed industry, fertiliser industry, and others will probably be in there as well. So I think it's important that everybody that's involved, or a good representation of the people that are heavily involved in the industry, are part of Tillage Industry Ireland.
So two things, the aims, the objectives of Tillage Industry Ireland, and indeed how important is it in your view that this just doesn't become a talking shop and a report put up in the filing cabinet?
Well, one of the kind of main aims that we would set ourselves would be that we would reverse the trend in acreage decline, which probably has happened before our instigation in a sense, in that it has happened for different reasons. But I think it's important to say that while we might say there's been an increase in cereal area, that has come from the area that was in maize and beet last year that's gone back into cereals this year. So it doesn't really represent an increase in area, it's just growing different crops.
How difficult was it pulling everybody together to this forum?
It wasn't that difficult because everybody foresaw the need and the need that was there. But in order to make sure that we were doing the will of all of the different parties, we can't go on a flyer just for farmers or just for trade or something else. So it's a balanced approach, hopefully for the good of the industry long term.
Andy, finally, next week a big event in Oak Parks on next Wednesday, Crops and Spreaders.
Yeah, the Teagasc Crops Open Day has long been an annual or a biennial event, and this is the third year that we've partnered in the Farmers Journal with Teagasc to give the commercial element, which is the spreaders element, to the Crops Open Day. But in the main for growers, it's a big Crops Open Day where there's a lot of research on show, and I would love to see good representation of tillage farmers there for them to say privately that tillage matters.
And of course there's a big supplement this week in the Farmers Journal covering all about crops and spreaders.
Yes, and I've had a quick run around just to give people some of the things that I found particularly interesting when I was there last week.
Andy Doyle, is always great to talk to you. I'm sure we talked to you before the main harvest.
Likewise, Kieran, thank you.
Well, it's hard to believe, but the annual Dungarvan Agricultural Show is just around the corner. This year's Dungarvan Show will take place on Thursday, 25th of July at the Ballygagan Showground. So earlier in the week I got a chance to talk to a very busy man indeed. He's chairman of the Dungarvan Agricultural Show, Pat Cunningham. Hard to believe, Pat, we're up and going again for this year's show.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that the years roll around, but here we are. We're 5 weeks out from the show itself, and it's all hands on deck. We're busy at the minute, trying to get everything in.
So you've had a good few committee meetings already?
We've probably had about 6, I'd say, since the start of the year. One more to come, and plenty of work in between committee meetings.
Now the heavy lifting starts literally.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of work pulled the whole thing together. But thankfully we have a good committee who are well able and capable of doing the job.
Just before we came on air, you mentioned all the main classes are back, but in particular you're delighted to have dairy classes back at the Dungarvan Agricultural Show.
Yes, for the last 3 years I think the dairy classes were missing from the show, but this year now we're running the 3 dairy classes within the show. We're going to run a super cow class, a junior cow class and a heifer and milk. All the other classes are the beef classes are per usual.
All the various breeds as normal.
All different as normal, yeah.
And what about the sheepmen? They're back on board, yeah?
Sheepmen are there as well, yeah. Matty Fahy and his hard working committee, the usual classes will be there, and we're main sponsor on board as well this year. Prize money is up in the sheep section as well.
And of course we're renowned for the horses, pony classes, horse showing classes and the show jumping, so I'm sure again all classes cater for.
Yes, all the show jumping we have around the Munster Grand Prix. We have a 120 show jumping speed class. There's late horse section, there's a 3-year-old filly All Ireland Championship, the finals in Bantry, and there's a 2-year-old All Ireland Championship with the final in Tinahely. So something
for all the family. And really the big thing about the show is the home industries and the Dungarvan Country Markets Marquee. They're really a hive of activity.
Absolutely, yeah. Those 2 tents are well worth a visit on the day of the show. And whether you're 9 or 90, there's actually something for everyone at an agricultural show. So it's we're appealing for the local people to maybe come out and give us a bit of support on the day. But there is something for everyone at a show. And
of course, one of the big highlights each year getting bigger and bigger. Again, before we come in here, you mentioned Gain Pet Nutrition back in action. The dog show at Dungarvan Show. Oh, my God, the Gain dog show.
It's phenomenal. The amount of dogs and the amount of people, and it's all a bit of fun. It's about the kids of the local area bring out the dog, have a bit of fun. Everyone gets a rosette, and it's great to have Gain Pet Nutrition on board to sponsor that, which is very important. But it's a big part of the show on the day.
So schedules out. Obviously, you'll be looking for entries from now on. How do people find out more, Pat?
Schedules are in the post as we speak, and our website is www.dungarvanshow.com. Schedule and entry forms and link to the online entries, which are open till the 17th of July. Not everyone is online, but we're still taking posted entries over the phone. Whatever way they'll come in, we'll take them.
Well, Pat, look, we're putting it out there, the date for your diary, Thursday 25th of July, the annual Dungarvan Agricultural Show, Ballygagan. Pat, you and all involved, the best of luck, and as you said, if you want more information, look up the website www.dungarvanagriculturalshow.com. Pat Cunningham, Chairman, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, Kieran.
So before we go on our racing and show jumping front, a great week again for local Waterford connections. On the racing front, cross channel, Dungarvan jock Trevor Whelan had a winner at Yarmouth, while back home at Leopardstown we wins for Knockeen trainer Henry de Bromhead, and Rathcormac trainer Pat Flynn, who's on a good run, had wins at Gordon Park and Fairyhouse. While at Downpatrick we wins for Villastown jock Mikey Hamill, as well as Henry de Bromhead, who had a nice winner ridden by young jock Hugh Morgan. On the show jumping front on the international scene, well done to colleague and rider Peter Maloney, who was part of the Irish Nations Cup team, who finished runner-up at the prestigious Nations Cup in Poland. So well done to young Peter on a fantastic achievement there. While back home in Galway, Waterford's Francis Connors took the Galway leg of the TRM Horse-Sport Ireland's New Heights Championship Series with English rider Colm Keane in runner-up spot. So well done to all involved. Well, that's it for this week's programme. So from Ollie and Sound and myself, Kieran O'Connor's goodbye for now, but hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.